This is DRF Race of the Day.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with Sunday's DRF Race of the Day. We're going to Saratoga, of course, on Sunday for your Race of the Day. Race number 9 is the Saratoga Oaks Invitational for 3-year-old fillies. They're going to go 1 mile and 3/16 on the turf course. Let's take a look at this field of 8 right now. Of course, you can get your free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. A lot of European flavor in this race. 3 shippers making their stateside debuts in this Saratoga Oaks. They're going to take on a group of stateside horses who are, for the most part, pretty familiar with each other. They several of these horses just squared off in the first leg of this series down at Belmont Park in the Belmont Oaks Invitational, and they all ran pretty well in there. They faced a much better European that day in Santa Barbara, who was just a really, really impressive winner of the Belmont Oaks. Santa Barbara is not back for the second leg of this series, but there are 3 other Europeans shipping over. And that being the case, I know there's only 3 of them in a field of 8, so there are 5 horses that we could build off here, but Timeform US did not see fit to make a pace projector for this race. They did not feel they had enough data to make an accurate pace projector for this race, so we don't have one for you. We'll see how the pace all plays out. I think one thing we know for sure is that the number 5, Cone Lima, who was just a very tactical horse and who just finished second to Santa Barbara in that Belmont Oaks, she's going to be forward in this race. She doesn't need to be on the lead, but she will be forwarded. As far as the pace goes, I think it'll be interesting to see what 2 of those Europeans do. A couple of the horses drawn towards the outside, Rocky Sky and Creative Flair. These are 2 horses, 2 fillies coming over here. And just based on the races, their races overseas, you can see that they both have a little bit of speed. They are not typical European sort of plotting type horses. They can be forward. Of course, the races are run a little bit differently over here, but don't be surprised if either one or both of those 2 horses is forward in this race, and we'll see perhaps even on the early lead. If they don't go in this race or just don't have American kind of speed, then I guess you'll probably see Cone Lima on the pace in this race, and that's just been, her advantage. Basically from the start of her career. There's really, I don't think when you watch Cone Lima run that you feel like she's any kind of a star, but she's certainly a talented horse. And just the fact that she is so tactical and so handy, it just leads to a lot of really good results for her. She's a really hard horse to knock. She's run 12 times in her career, and she's been in the exacta in 11 of those races. She's just always right there at the end of her races. 2 starts back, she parlayed a perfect trip into a grade 3 win in the Wonder again, holding off a pretty unfortunate Plum Ali in that race. She became a grade 3, but that was actually her second grade 3 when she was also placed first in a grade 3 earlier in the year down at Gulfstream. So she's now a multiple graded stakes winner. She came back in the Belmont Oaks Invitational and defeated 4 of these same rivals, 3 of these same rivals. So let's take a look at the replay, the stretch run of that race, because this is, just sort of Cone Lima doing what she does. She got a great trip in this race, right on the lead in here, made a rated pace, didn't take any pressure at all. She's driving through the stretch. Higher Truth, who sat right in behind her, and another good trip and is back in this race. Higher Truth comes out to take a shot at her, and the stretch can't quite get by. Santa Barbara's too much horse for all of them and runs by them late. 2 horses coming into the picture a little bit late there on the outside are perhaps 2 horses who you feel like, under the right circumstances, can and probably will turn the tables on Cone Lima in here. That's Gam's Mission and Plum Ali. They were both rallying towards the outside. It was way too late. The race did not set up well for them at all. But they're both really nice horses. Gam's Mission had won a grade 3 race at Churchill in her prior start, going 9 furlongs. She'd also won her prior 2 starts, so that was her 3rd consecutive win for Cherie DeVoe. She ran in that Belmont Oaks, and listen, she was wide every step of the way in there. Still had a pretty good finish, was trying gamely all the way down to the end. She just couldn't gain any ground, and you saw there in about past mid-stretch, she was sort of on even terms with Santa Barbara, but there's no kicking with a horse like Santa Barbara. She's just simply too good. Gam's Mission, I thought, ran really well, as did Plum Ali. Plum Ali is becoming one of those horses now who it just feels like, as good as she is, and I do think she's really good, she just is constantly pace compromised, and she's gotten, I think, very unlucky in her last 2 races. I don't think it's that hard to go back and pull a replay of the Wonder again, watch that race, and just feel like she was the best horse in there. She just simply didn't win. She was taken back to last. She had an outside post going a mile and 1/8 on the inner turf at Belmont, and that's just not a good place to be. Joe Rosario took her back to save ground. He gave away tons of position in that race. She was coming with a really strong finish through the stretch, but she could not get up. Very unlucky not to win that day. Not quite as unlucky last time in the Belmont Oaks, but man, she was unlucky again. Last again, always off the inside. Rosario had no choice but to take her widest at the top of the stretch. She finished very well once again. Could not kick with Santa Barbara, couldn't make up enough ground to get a bigger piece of it, and settled for fifth. She obviously needs a trip in her races, but when you watch Plum Ali run, you just sort of get the feeling that if she ever finds a way into a truly run race, she's going to be very, very tough to beat. Maybe she doesn't really want to go this far. I do think distance could be a little bit of a question for her, but a mile and 3/16, I think she'll get it in the right situation. So we'll just see if this race sets up for her at all. And it does feel like, unfortunately for her, she might be relying on a couple of Europeans to provide pace for her, and that may not be such a great position for her to be in. We'll see how the pace and the dynamics of this race all play out. Let's hit on those two Europeans really quickly before we move on here. Rocky Sky is going to make her stateside debut here, switching into the barn of trainer Chad Brown. She's been privately purchased by Peter Brandt since her most recent race. Listen, I don't know what to say about this filly. She doesn't really have a ton of pedigree, but she's a real overachiever and obviously has some ability. Ran a very good race on debut at 40-1 to finish third. That was a good performance. She came back and won her next start at 10-1, finished a good second and got herself stakes placed back in March, where she finished just ahead of another European in here, Messidor. Didn't run great, I didn't think, in that race, but she was very game to prevail for second behind a runaway winner. Turf debut came in her most recent start over in Ireland. This was also a stakes race, and it was going 1.25 miles. And she was a big price again, 33-1. She ran really well in that race. Got herself forward under a big hold in that race, just went on with it after about the opening furlong, took that race over, took a little bit of pressure on the lead, put that horse away, opened up and just stayed on through the stretch to wire that field at 33-1 odds. Another big upset. She hasn't gotten any respect over there, but she has shown that she can run a little bit. Again, she's been privately purchased by a top owner, turned over to Chad Brown. If you're a workout person, you're probably very interested in this filly. Chad's been pairing her up with some pretty solid horses. Not only did she keep company with her new stablemate Higher Truth, who's also back in this race and who is not without a chance, but he paired her up with Rock Emperor, and she held her own with that horse. Rock Emperor, of course, came back to do what he always does, and he ran second in the Bowling Green last weekend, but he ran another solid race. She also held her own with Virginia Joy, who stakes placed over here. So I don't know. He's pairing her up with some nice horses. She's holding her own. If you're a workout person, you like that. And I think you also would like the fact that she could get forward in here. We'll see what kind of price she's going to be. The other European, and perhaps the best European coming over, is Creative Flair for Godolphin and Charlie Appleby, number 7 in this race. Listen, her races they're all good. This filly obviously has some talent, and again, she does have the speed to be forwardly placed in her races. We'll put up a replay right now. This is her at Ascot back in April. This is her seasonal debut, her 3-year-old debut. This is going 1 mile in a little allowance race over there. Just sat right up on the pace, got forward right from the start, tracked it, took it over coming through the straight there, and just won very easily. This is a really talented filly. She won that race. She came back 2 starts later to become a stakes winner at 1.25 miles. Very game winning that race. They, basically on the lead all the way in that race. Had the runner-up just challenging her from a long way out, would not let that horse by. Dead game to prevail, and they took her over to France for a Group 3 last time in her most recent race, also at 1.25 miles. She ran really well, or at 1.1 miles rather. She ran really well in that race. Also put her right on the lead. I mean, she was clear all the way down, coming down to the finish, down inside the final 16th at least, and just got run down by a pair of horses at the end. Ran really well again. I think Creative Flair is actually pretty good, and I think in some ways she could be the horse to beat in here. Again, I don't want to take too much away from Cone Lima. She's just not the kind of horse who is going to be a great price in here, and I just don't really feel like she has any edge on this field aside from her running style. And obviously, trips make a big difference. She gets another good one. Perhaps she'll be right there at the end of this race again. But I just didn't really want her back in this race. I'm going to try to beat her. I'm going to give Plum Ali one more shot in this race. Again, she needs the right trip and the right setup. I just think she's good. I think she's underrated, and I think she's been very unlucky in her last couple of starts. So I'm going to take Plum Ali, give her one more chance, and hope that these Europeans provide at least a little bit of pace for her. I'm going to put her over Creative Flair and the other European, Rocky Sky, for Chad Brown. But Plum Ali for me. And Sunday's race of the day, the Saratoga Oaks. It's race number 9 at Saratoga on Sunday. Good luck.